And we're live. What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to the show. Welcome to the podcast. We got a good one tonight. Thanks for coming in. We're going to give Eric. I'm going to give everybody a shout out here before we start the podcast.
Go for it. Let's hear who
I see
all's in here.
922 Crappie Barbecue in the house. Miss Annette's Catfishing. There's Mr. Chunky. How you doing, sir? Dale Hayslip in the house. David Smith. Fishing with Squirrel. What's up, Dawson? I know he'll like this show. Hillbilly Hondo. Mike Irvin in the house. What's going on, Mike? How you doing? Hope you're well. There's Pontoon Jody's Catfishing. Friday night famous Pontoon Jody's Catfishing. Sean Abney, Wayne Hoska, he's a channel member and supporter. I appreciate you. There's Sean Abney, Fishing with Squirrel. Fishing with Jeff Beal. How you doing, sir? Parker Pursuits in the house. Parker got on some crappie today. Eric will be back. He just I think he hit the wrong button. We'll wait till he gets back. Let's see who else popped in here. There's Creole Catfishing. How you doing? Dale Hayslip, David Smith. You guys are starting to come in here. I love it. We're starting this new season out right. Appreciate the thumbs up. We got 21 thumbs up in the house already. You guys are awesome. Let's see if Eric gets back in here. So we'll wait till he gets back in here to start the show. Hey, there's Cool Cats. What's going on, James? How you doing? Let's see what's going on in chat here. Mr. Flathead, not so much. Flathead season is done, Jody. So it's going to be Commander Crappie for a couple of weeks before everything freezes up. There's Crappie Day Fish On. He's a channel member. How you doing, sir? Appreciate your support. Here comes Eric. He's back.
Boom.
Hit the wrong button?
That was my fault.
That's okay. It'll happen. I'm just saying hello to everybody. LG Bass channel supporter. Thank you very much. LG, we're stacking up. People are hitting the like buttons. I was going to say Jerry Parker went crappie fishing today. He got some good ones. I saw 12 plus inchers, and he got a whole pile of them today. He was sending me pictures already. So that's pretty cool. All right. So here we go. Welcome to the Catfish and Crappie podcast. My name is Mark. Today, we're season 3, episode 2. I'm going to have to post this banner up here. I want to thank the channel supporting companies. First off, Easy Step, Amped Outdoors, Uncle Lou's Tackle, Multi-Bars, FOA Customs and Gear, Mr. Freddie, Port Barrington Marina. Without those people, my show would be a heck of a lot harder to do, and it'd be a heck of a lot harder to get out and fish as much as I love to do. And I do get out and fish. Just haven't been going live. Went fishing today, Eric.
And?
I got 3 keeper crappie and 2 nice perch. The rest were all dinks are going back. Got a bunch of bluegill, but it was rough. 20-mile-an-hour winds. It's a lot nicer in that big boat, but that wind blows you around just a little bit more. So
I know it don't really seem like I fight mine this one as much as I did the champion. I don't know why. I don't know if it was or maybe it's just because I got a boat now that I can face into it and it's going to hold there for a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm more willing now to go out in a 15-plus mile-an-hour wind than what I was before.
Well, my little boat wouldn't be too bad, but it was low to the water, so it wouldn't get blown around as much. But it was rough to get off the trailer and on the trailer and wind. And today, in 20-mile-an-hour winds, I got that boat on that roller trailer on and off, no problem. I was pretty happy about that. So
yeah.
Biggest difference. I did notice I did go to fish under some bridges today, and it almost blew me up on the rocks. That was kind of scary. That was not fun.
Yeah.
I need to say hello to Sister D. How you doing, D? Chad and Josh made us proud today, I think. Oh, I know. So good job for them. Anyways, Wayne Hoska is channel member 2. John from Small Water Charters. I got to give these people a shout out. They're taking the time to come in here. They should be recognized. I appreciate it. Wayne Hoska here, he used to live around me, and I think he made a pretty good penny tying jigs, and we'll talk about that later. So Wayne's a good dude. He comes in all the time. I think he thinks the same way we do. But we won't talk about
that. I bet. I'm sure.
What's going on, Kevin Fishes? All right, so yeah, I got out on the water today. I'm waiting for water temps here. Okay, let's start from the beginning. Eric, where are you from?
I'm from Southwest Missouri. I'm just probably 45 minutes southeast of Truman, southwest, about the same distance, 45 minutes southwest of Lake of the Ozarks, right an hour north of Table Rock Lake, Stockton Lake, Palm de Terre Lake. I'm like in the perfect spot in Missouri if you fish or hunt.
Hey, how far are you from Branson?
I'm about 45 minutes from Branson.
I'll be in Branson in December. My wife chose there to go for her birthday, so we're heading out to Branson. So
Well, y'all gonna have to look us up and maybe go out to eat or something.
I think we can do that. Maybe you, me, and Lyle. Maybe we could all meet up and
Yeah.
have dinner one night. That'd be
Heck yeah,
kind of
I'd
cool.
be more looking forward to that.
That'd be a lot of fun. So that's pretty cool. It's not too bad of it. I think it's like 10 hours for me. So I've been meaning to get out there and fish. I actually had an idea that maybe you, me, Lyle, maybe even Kim Barnett, we could all get out and fish together. I think that'd be a cool trip to make one of these days.
Yeah, that would be a cool trip. What are you talking, like maybe Truman or?
Yeah, Truman, wherever we could figure that out, meet somewhere that's more convenient for everybody. I'd be making a long ride out there, so I'd have to find a place to stay as far as the
Yeah, I
motel
think
goes and stuff like that.
Kim would be making a pretty good drive too. Got to be over an hour for him, I would think.
Over an hour, I don't think he'd have a problem with that though.
Yeah,
I think that would be a good time.
me and Lyle are the two that are going to get easy gas money on that trip.
Parker Pursuit says Mr. Massey lives in the best state.
I believe it. Sometimes I really honestly, for fishing wise, I believe this is, to me, it is the best.
After today, I know that I don't live in the best state for fishing. That's for sure. I've had a rough year this year. It's been kind of hard. I haven't been skunked in my boat yet, so that's a good thing. Nothing to write.
Gotten skunked yet in this one either.
Not to write home about. Chad was saying that, and I got to thinking. I don't think I have been either. So we've gotten lucky. At least I've gotten a channel cat or something. The last few times I've been out, nothing stellar, but it'll come. We'll have a good outing sooner or later. It's got to happen. I'm still waiting for the water to cool down here in northern Illinois. We're still at like 56, 57 degrees. I saw today.
How much cooler are you trying to get?
50 degrees, and those crappie will move into the. I want to say channels, but they're actually canals. They're like the canals people live off of between the channel lakes here.
Yeah.
The closer it is to 50 degrees, the more they move in. They were in. Well, this is what happened today, Eric. I went to one of my hot spots, right? Went out there, nothing. I'm like, something's nipping at the tails of these Bobby Garlands that I'm using. I switched over to a hair tie, same thing. So I switched over to my 1-inch Berkeley Gulp minnows and a bunch of little baby bluegill. They couldn't have been more than 4 inches in size. But so I caught about 10 or 15 of them, and I went out onto the lake, and like I said, it was 20-mile-an-hour wind, so that wasn't that fun.
Yeah.
But we marked a couple of brush piles. I marked them down, put the waypoints down, so they'll be there next time I am. And I think I was marking a lot of big shad. They weren't crappie because they weren't biting for nothing. But towards the end of the day, I went back to my original spot. I'm like, something tells me to go over there. I went in there, and that's where I started catching crappie. They started moving in as the temps cooled off during the day a little bit. And those couple of perch, they were eater size perch. I think I caught like 6 perch, but 2 of them were actually worth keeping.
Yeah.
So I got them on ice. I like to keep them on ice overnight before I clean them. They just seem to clean a lot easier that way. How do you do it?
Usually I like, if it's wintertime, honestly, with this boat now, I got electric flare or rechargeable flame knife, and I keep it in the boat, and I do all of mine in the boat. I package them up, put them back, set them on ice till I get home. We was doing that in the summertime. I didn't have to worry about them getting that mushy. I was flaying them, not quite as we was catching them, but every 5 or 6 fish I'd flay them and go ahead and get them all put on ice and stuff like that. Before though, I would usually do it as soon as I got home. Summertime I'd keep them on ice. Wintertime, just as long as I kept a little bit of water in the bucket, just to keep them cool, was always seemed to me like it was good.
I'll keep them in my live well alive until I get off the water, and then they go right on the ice.
Yeah.
And that seems to work. I like to put them on ice and leave them sit overnight just because they're stiffer, they're easier to flay.
Yeah, a lot easier to flay once you got them on ice.
Yeah, and I think cold water crappie tastes better. Not that summer crappie don't taste good.
I agree. I think every fish tastes better when it comes out of water that's 60 degrees and colder.
Yep, I agree. I've had channel cat through the ice a couple of times, and for some reason it always had kind of an irony taste to me. I don't know what it is. Of course, my catfish I always marinate in and Frank's Red Hot. I just
Yeah.
like it that way. Maybe that had something to do with it with the cold water. I have no clue.
Yeah,
We'll
it
try
could
it
be.
differently.
I don't know if I've ever. Actually, I don't know if it's ever altered the taste of it, but it seems like the meat's cleaner in the wintertime, especially on channel cats, white bass, hybrids. You don't have that blood patch on them
Yeah.
like you do in the summertime.
You know, I last year I tried my first white bass, and I think one of them was a striper too. I caught them out here at Rock Cut State Park. They got a pretty good population out there, and
Yeah.
I didn't care for it that much.
I don't care for it a lot either. White bass, usually, if I got somebody who's fishing with me that enjoy eating white bass in the summertime, we'll keep them. But if I don't keep them, you know, in the wintertime, there's a spot there where I don't keep them. You know, getting into May, June. That's about it. That's about the end of my keeping the white bass. They're fun to catch, but I don't care to.
Oh yeah, they fight like the dick. You know, even a drum fight's hard. I'm finding out in my brush piles that there's always a drum or two in there, and they're always good sized ones for some reason.
Always.
Like I caught a 15-incher. Oh my God, never lay them on your carpet. I'll tell you about that. When
I
know. I got like a 15-inch drum. What was it last week? And that thing on a 10-foot B&M pole, that thing was a fun fight. That was a good time. But I got it in a boat and I laid it on the carpet, and I still got to shampoo that spot where that fish was laying. That was a big mistake of my life.
I think the week before last, I caught like a 12, 13, somewhere between 12, 15 pound carp. Actually, little 32nd ounce crappie jig. I mean, it was in the corner of his mouth. I got him in the net and I went to raise him. All this slime was just running out from underneath of him. I was like, man, I am not putting him on the end. I laid him on the gunnel of my boat, and I still have slime go down in the doors. And I was never so glad to see a fish go back in the water because that slime went all over the place, everywhere.
You know, in my old boat, when I caught a carp, I would catch them for bait. They'd go in the net, and I'd open up the live well before I brought it over the side, and I'd dump it right into the live well. I would never touch the floor or any carpet or anything. I haven't caught any in here, but them carp love them crappie nibbles, or they love them crappie scents. I get one big one every year.
I might have had a crappie nibble on that.
Yeah, they like it for some. They like it for some reason. I don't know what it is, but they'll eat those and never fails. At least every spring I'll come across a big old carp crappie fishing. So.
I wouldn't put on a good fight though. Like you said, 10-foot rod, 6-pound line, man, drag was just streaming off. I really didn't expect to get that fish in, but I did. I got him all the way up to get him in the net. And it wouldn't hurt my. Well, no, that was the only one of those jigs I had. So I was kind of fighting like, there's no way you're taking this only one. I've done caught like 9 or 10 crappie off this. I'm not losing it. It is the only one I had tied up.
I get kind of upset when I lose gear too. It's like, it's not so much replacing, it's having to retie it and do all of that stuff.
Going back through all the process, the wind blowing you away from where you were. Yeah, it turns into a hassle sometimes.
Oh, don't even get me started on wind blowing you where you were. You know, I got my boat and it came with the iLink Minn Kota trolling motor, right?
Yeah.
And it's got the touch screen remote.
Yeah.
You know how often I accidentally touch that screen and take it off the spot lock? Oh, my God.
I'm pretty sure because I got the push button one. It's not touch screen. But I thought about that. I knew because I could upgrade it and get that one, and I'm really glad I did.
Yeah, I know somebody who had an Altera with iLink, and they had that touchscreen remote control going 40 miles an hour. They accidentally hit the deploy button on there.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it tore it right off the front of their boat. It was not a pretty sight. So, it's not always the latest and greatest. Always isn't the greatest. Hey, butterflies, how you doing? And there's John Smallwaters. He's a crappie guy down in on Lake Okeechobee. There's Donald Long. What's going on, Donald? How you doing? People coming in here. Remember to hit that thumbs up, folks. Hopefully that we got 12% of the people say tennis is life. We got a poll that I put in when they come in here to remind people to hit that thumbs up. They usually do a pretty good job. So Eric, tell us a little bit about your jigs. It is Eric Massey Jig Company, by the way.
Eric Massey Jig Company. I do more custom orders. I'll get a lot of people that hit me up, about my website and all that. I never really wanted to tie myself down with only having so many jigs that I tied. I like being more creative with my jigs. And I really liked when people would text me or message me and say, hey, I'm looking for this, this, and this, and this. To me, it was a challenge. It wasn't actual work like, to me, kind of stocking up a website would be. I like to be able to be creative with it. I wanted somebody to be able to buy something that they knew I'm the only one that's got these jigs. And that's kind of what steered me away from the website. We did Etsy for a while. I did eBay for a while. Actually going through a website's the only thing that I haven't done to actually sell jigs. And I really don't see any time in the future that I'm going to, but I liked having that creative. I like being able to be creative with it. Somebody will say, hey, I want a chartreuse and black jig head with a pink neck and a red tail. See what you come up with. That was my style. That's what I like doing.
I remember when I ordered a bunch of jigs and I had Eric paint them for me. And he's like, well, what colors do you want? I'm like, I don't know. Just paint them any colors. He seemed a little upset. He's not upset, but he's a little disappointed. He wanted to get fancy with them. So
I want to make them pretty. I want somebody to open up that bag of jig heads and go, that is awesome. I don't even want to fish with. And I have had people to say, man, I'm not fishing with it. I had a picture of a guy with one on his desk, and he's like, I'm not putting it in the water. That's where it stays. I was like, man, I can type another one. I got a picture of it. Fish with it. I'm not fishing with it.
You've sent me a couple.
Passion. That's what I like to do. I like to be creative.
You sent me a couple of jigs, some of the glowing ones and a couple other ones you sent me back run. And I don't have the heart to tie them on there and just throw them around and do that.
Throw them around. Get them. Stick them in a tree. Do it.
Eric makes some really nice looking stuff. Do they catch more fish or do they catch more fishermen? What do you say, Eric?
I think they should be able to catch both the same. If nobody wants to buy an ugly crappie jig, so when I would get comment people saying, that jig's not made to catch fish, it's made to catch fishermen. No, it's made to catch both. Because if you want something you got confidence in, something that looks good, something that you've got it in your hand and for a fact this guy over here fishing beside you does not have that jig. Yeah, they were made to catch fishermen as equally as they were made to catch fish.
100%. There's some nice looking stuff. If you guys don't follow him on Facebook or TikTok, I got a link in the description to Eric's YouTube channel. I probably should have put your Facebook so people can take a look at some pictures. He makes some really cool stuff. I recommend you check it out. At least take a look at him and you'll see what I'm talking about. But Eric Stuffley, he's inspired me to get out and start pouring some jigs. So I'm going to start doing that pretty soon. I don't think it'll look as nice as him, but I'm going to get out there.
No, you'd be surprised. It's blending colors together. You know what I mean? As odd as it sounds, I'll see something somewhere and think, man, that'd be cool looking if that was a crappie jig. The paint on a car, the way some paints are just deep and lure you in. I would get inspiration from weird little things like that.
There's I'm trying to remember. I had one gentleman here on my podcast, and I'm sorry I don't have his name on the top of my head. I'm terrible with names, Eric. You'll learn that about me the more we talk. But he is a car. He was an auto body guy, and he actually sprays all his jigs.
I've seen people spray them. I mean, it can be done with the right setup. I mean, there's so many ways. Back, when I was a little kid, my dad would go there was a hardware store in town that sold just plain lead heads. And we would go home and take Mom's old fingernail polish and, paint them up when I was a little kid, just so that way. And it wasn't nothing fancy. It was, 10 orange ones, 10 white ones, 10 pink ones, but we did it cheap. We learned how to do it ourselves.
Here's a funny story. Lyle got me into tying some jigs back like last year or the year before last. I do it more in the winter than I do in the summer. I'm usually just too busy. But I'm with my wife at the Dollar Tree or whatever the heck the name of that dollar store is.
Yeah.
And I told her, I'm like, I need to stop in and get some nail polish. She's like, what? So we go in there. I tell her what it's for. That woman actually made me go up there and pay for it myself just to embarrass me.
I bet this stuff here, the Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails, I bet I buy more of this stuff than any woman in this town we live in. I guarantee you I'm the only one that keeps that off. I don't know if women even still use that or not, but it's down at the very bottom, the fingernail polish aisle. It's not the square one, it's the round one. I guarantee I use more than this than any woman in this town does.
Is there a difference between a square and the round bottles? Because all the ones I got are square.
I really don't know, but I know I've always got the round one. For whatever reason, I started out with the round one. I never messed with the square one. And I just stuck with this. I don't know what the difference is. It seemed like it wasn't quite as clear. Maybe it was like a little dingier kind of color, maybe.
A little hazy, maybe.
But it could have been the package that was behind it or something like that. It just that was the one I seen that looked really crystal clear.
I'm not gonna lie. I use it to make sure my threads don't come loose for the most
That's
part.
what I use it for too, for the most part, is that. And Sally Hansen is probably still in business because of people tying jigs. You watch any jig tying video from here until 20 years ago, they were coating with Sally Hansen as hard as nails. I mean,
Yep.
you hear that all the time. I've heard people, that do it a lot bigger scale than I do, don't really, some of that other name brand stuff. Sally Hansen's just as good, and I tested that and they were right.
You got people
stuff.
You got people like Kim that don't use that stuff. They don't use glue or any of that. I'm not that good. So
there's a lot of people that don't. And when I tried to do it without using it, I feel like I'm cheating myself, or something's going to happen, or they're all going to start coming undone. It's going to be because of that. It's an anxiety that's probably not. I don't need. It might not need it, but there's a little more insurance security there that it's not going to come undone.
Well, it gives you confidence in your end product. So
yeah, and if you're watching yourself when you put it on the hook and you got it on that shank of that hook and you start wrapping that thread around it, you can see it squeezing out of the thread. Then when you start putting your feathers on, you can see it kind of pushing those feathers a little bit. So it's building up a bond. The smell, to me, goes away after I've had it in the UV box, or I just let them sit out for 24, 30 hours. That smell goes away. I've heard a lot of people complaining, I can smell that. I don't like using that stuff. It dissipates over a certain amount of time. It seems to me like it does.
Oh, here's a good question from Creole Catfish. And Jeremy says, what's Eric's opinion of standard J hooks versus sickle hooks?
Boy, that has turned into a war over the last 2 years. And I've had people send me pictures of those broken J hooks that are broken in the shank. I have never broke a J hook or a sickle hook. I mean, I've seen pictures of the sickle hook broken at bend. I've yet to ever break one. I had one that was a jig that was 5 years old that ended up breaking when I got it snagged in a tree. I've actually broke that bend off, and I think it's like right there in that bend between this one and this one's where it will usually break, somewhere in there. My theory on it is 10, 12, 14, 16 foot long rods. They're watching live scope and they set the hook like they're setting the hook on a sturgeon.
They don't realize that, you got all that leverage on that 10
there
foot,
is
12
so
foot rod.
much force coming up through that jig when you set that hook on it, but they have never shown me a picture of a J hook that's broke from doing the same thing. But I really think that some of those long rods are putting so much stress on that they do kind of bend out a little bit and they end up breaking.
I set the hook on a smaller crappie, maybe 4 feet deep last week, and that sucker went flying over me, over to the opposite side of the boat. I set that hook so darn hard.
Familiar? Zach did it one time. We was fishing and I was doing a video and he did that. He set the hook. Well, the fish, it was a little largemouth bass. Couldn't have been no more than 2 foot underneath the water. And he set the hook on it. Well, when I went back to watch that video, you could see that little bass fly past my head when he set the hook on it and pulled it completely out of the water. But yeah, I've never had a problem with sickle hooks. And the thing about sickle hooks is I always liked how they hook them in the roof of the mouth.
Roof of the mouth. I made the change to sickle hooks a while back, and that's what I use now. I got 2000 number 2 sickle hooks sitting on my bench in the garage right now that I just ordered. So I'm pretty much all in. And I even my Aberdeen hooks, I ordered the Pro V's from Eagle Claw. They're pretty much just a hybrid sickle hook. That's what I use. I can get it. I can get into a smaller bluegill's mouth when I'm bait fishing with those sickle hooks than I can with the regular Aberdeen. It just works better for me.
I really think the hookup rate's got to be better with the sickle hook than it is a J hook. I don't have the statistic or be able to prove it or not, but it just seems like that hook's deeper in their mouth, in the roof of their mouth, versus the J hooks that are always like in the front of the lip, the side of the lip, and I've caught them both the same way with both style hooks, but it just seems to me like the sickle hook is buried up in that bone And I think when that, like I said, when that hook gets set and you got all that kinetic energy building up in that rod, it breaks. That's kind of my opinion.
SK, he used to use single hooks for a long time, and he went back to regular J hooks.
I'm probably tying more now with J hooks than I ever have been before, unless it's like.
Yeah, and he swears by those J hooks. So, and he's out there every day catching fish.
Yeah,
so.
And you can get some of those J hooks. I was getting some J hooks from Limits Tackle, and he had those steelhead hooks.
I got a bunch of those in the garage too.
You could winch your boat back up on a trailer with those.
I know
those hooks. There is no doubt. And I warned people when I tied with them. I said, man, if you're using a long rod and you're using braided line, I'm telling you, set your drag down, because something is going to give, and it's not going to be that hook.
100%. I ordered a whole slew of them from Limits, and man, those hooks don't break for nothing.
They're just mean looking. I mean, you compare it to anything else, and it has got a thickness to it that most hooks don't.
All right. When I went to Ohio, I tried using them. We were not dragging. I'm sorry, that's catfishing. We were long lining for crappie, and I couldn't keep them off the bottom. I don't know if they're just that much more dense. I even was up to a 16th, but a regular head jig wouldn't. I'd be able to keep it off the bottom, but those steel heads, for some reason, I don't know what it is. They were just dragging bottom, and they would. And when they got snagged, they got snagged. I was breaking them off all the time.
Oh yeah, you break them off. You don't straighten them out.
There's something to be said for thin wire hooks too, though.
Yep, there is too, because I straightened one out the other day, probably 5 times, and still I think it's still on the rod of the boat. And I bent it out, straightened it back and forth with that J hook, it was a J hook. It was something that I'd got from Jason Brummel, and I had shaped that hook 4 or 5 different times. Sometimes those Aberdeen hooks, the light wire hooks, sometimes they're worth their weight in gold to me. If I could just bend that hook back in place.
My neighbor went on a couple of guided trips with his father down on, I think it was Rend Lake or Lake of Egypt down southern Illinois. And he was telling me their guide was using strictly nothing but minnows and light wire hooks. And that's because they were fishing such heavy brush, and they would just straighten them out, bend it back, and get them back in the water. So
we'll do that quite a bit. I'll get those. Actually, I still use those True Turn light wire hooks sometimes when we're just minnow and, just dangling the minnow up above a tree stump or something. We'll use those quite a bit.
Well, that's what I need to try. What I'm learning, and we'll get into electronics talk, but when I'm on a brush pile, if those fish are hunkered down in that brush pile, they're not going to bite.
Not usually. I don't think so.
Yeah, they usually don't. I'll get 1 or 2 out of that pile, and I'll have to move on, is what I'm learning. Or else I'm wasting my time.
We'll hit a area just full of stumps. And if we can get 2 fish off a stump, I'm happy. If we get 2 fish off of it, I'm probably not going to keep on hanging above that stump. I'm going to move on to the next one, the next one, the next one, take 1 or 2 off each one. I think there's only so many, I say this, somebody else is going to say, no, that's not true. But, I think there's only so many times you're going to disturb that water. Some of those fish are going to go all the way down the bottom. Some of them are going to push out. And, and in a couple minutes, they might come back. But if I'm looking at 300 yards of nothing but stumps, I'm not going to sit there and wait for them to come back. I'm going to move on to the next one.
I'm not that fortunate. I got this lake that I'm on today. I don't know how big it is, but I know 6 decent brush piles on there that actually hold fish, and only 2 of them for the most part hold crappie. Everything else is all white and yellow bass. And
well, we got certain ones that we know we're going to hit first, and we might skip 20 to get down to the next ones that's in the spot that I want, somewhere close to a creek channel or washout coming off the bank, sitting a little bit deeper water. Some of them I know I'm just not even going to waste my time on it. Usually if it's laying horizontal, I won't fish it. If it's vertical and it's got a lean to it, it seems like I do a lot better on trees like that.
I don't have much standing timber. A couple of places, like when I was in Ohio fishing with Betty Jean, there was a one spot that she has a few stumps in there that are standing up. And Kim Burnett told me something that them fish sit there with their nose to the stumps.
Yep.
Right up to them. And I it's not that I didn't believe him, but once you see it, you understand. Yep. There's a couple of places like here, Shabana. It's got a big stump field that I got to get out and try. a couple places. So I'm looking forward to doing that, especially now with the live scope. That's a hot topic. What's your opinion on live scope? Let's hear it, Eric.
If you got it and you enjoy fishing with it, it don't matter what anybody else says about it.
I don't know if I enjoy it.
I've been behind it. It was the coolest thing I ever seen, and I wish I never would have seen it. I wish I would not have seen it, because now it plays this head game with you. Is there really even a fish there? Is it going to take this fish 3 minutes to bite instead of a minute to bite? Are they staring at it? And that was something I had to overcome after fishing behind it was, patience, go back to the way we used to fish and do that. I would love to have it. I don't have it yet. Eventually it'll happen. It'll be in my boat. But man, this has started such a war with so many people on social media about, the guys that don't have it hate the guys that do have it, and the guys that do have it swear you can't catch fish unless you do have it. It's crazy. All the drama and stuff that everybody's got to put up with through the week. Why drag it to the lake and come back on Sunday night and start your rant on Facebook about, and I'll even make a video every once in a while, and I'll kind of poke at live scope guys or poke at guys that don't have, just to see what kind of reaction I get out of them.
I seen that TikTok. I was like, oh, that's what made me say, yeah, I need to get Eric on the show.
I just want to, and it's for nothing more than just a reaction. If you went out and you used it and you had a good time, that's all that matters. If you went out without it and you still had a good time, it don't matter. Why are you worrying about it?
Okay, let me tell you a story. A guy who, besides my grandfather, I had a neighbor who lived across the street, a German guy, Ed Zink, right? He's passed a long time ago. Great guy. He was a big salmon fisherman on Lake Michigan, right?
Yeah.
Man, he took me out there once. That's the first time I ever got seasick, and that was after like 2 cans of Hawaiian Punch. Boy, was that a mess. Let me tell you, but that's another story. And back in that day, yeah, I'm that old. He got one of those old graphs with the paper.
I remember seeing those.
And I remember when we pulled into the lot, some old timer back then gave him so much flack about having that thing on his boat.
Yeah.
If there was social media back then, it'd be the same thing.
It would have been the exact same. If my dad would have seen side scan the way I see the side scan now, he'd be like, I can't believe you're using that. That's cheating. It's the same thing. It's a tool meant to be used. Use it. If you got the technology and you got it in your boat, use it. If you don't have it, get it, or just
or don't, either way.
Or don't.
Like today, I fished all day. I didn't have the transducer in the water once.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel like putting it in there. I'm like, well, I know where I'm going to fish. I had my plan and I just did it. I do that. If I'm using new water, then that. But one thing for sure that it's done, it's changed the tournament world for sure.
Yeah. We don't tournament fish at all anymore. No way.
I don't, because if you don't have it, I've never tournament fished for crappie, definitely. But I can understand that, because they went from long line, spider rigging, all of that to one single pulling now. That's all.
You look at how that tournament scene evolved in like a 10-year span, with the spider riggings, the 16-foot rods, the, dragging chains behind your boat to slow you down into the water, to now they're back to a 5-foot rod and casting a little 64th ounce jig.
And they got crappie breaks now.
Yeah, crappie breaks, all that. I mean, it's crazy how it evolved and changed the tournament series. But what I also look at too is, you got some of the big major trails, Crappie Masters and all that stuff. They had to see a big hit, for people that don't pay to fish those tournaments. Because at one time, you take a Crappie Masters tournament, the State Trail Tournament Series right here on Truman Lake, 250 boats in it, and now there's 32.
I haven't heard that, but that's really interesting.
To me, it seems crazy. I mean, me and him was fishing it. I'm pretty sure every boat that was in that tournament series all had live scope, or they had 2 or 3 of them on the front of the boat. But I don't think there wasn't any more than ever 50 boats.
Well,
I don't think in any of it.
The guys that used to long line and spider rig, they would catch a lot of fish. And they'd go through fish to find the big ones. They'd
Yeah.
be throwing them back. They're calling and such and such. Where with live scope, they don't do that. They just
Hunt
find
and
the
seek.
fish, target them, and catch them. That's pretty much
Yeah.
how they've been doing it. And I was watching a podcast, the guys over at Crappie Connection. That's a great podcast. If you guys like crappie fishing, check them boys out. There's some serious crappie fish.
Who was it?
I'm sorry,
Who did you say that was?
Crappie Connection.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and Brad Chappell has a way to explain it in a way that makes you want to do it. There's something about the way Brad Chappell handles his crappie fishing and, you know, the live scope guys versus the, you know, long line guys. He was one of the best at long line. And I was actually on the lake early last spring, and I actually knew he had that formula for long lining on weight of jig, weight of line, speed of boat. And I texted him while I was on the lake, you know, and he sent me the message back, and he gave me the whole chart on how.
Yeah, I got that from him too.
Yeah, you know, and I'm
like the lengths and speeds with the weights of jigs, what kind of line you're using.
And I use that. I was using it the other day. I actually pulled it up and I was setting speeds on everything just to make sure I was right. And he was, like I said, Brad Chappell's one of those guys that's just really down to earth, you know, with what he does for the crappie industry.
Creole Catfishing says, I'm fascinated by what can be learned about fish behavior by watching live scope.
Yeah.
I agree, Jeremy, but it'll also break your heart because you'll find out how many fish want nothing to do with what you're throwing at them.
And how many fish were under the water. You know, when you hit a spot to where there was a lot of fish, until you see what it really is on that screen. I mean, I spent probably at least an hour mesmerized just by watching. I was like, oh my gosh, look at that. You know, there was so many crappie on this tree, so many crappie over here on this tree, so many over here, catfish swimming. It was absolutely the coolest thing I ever watched.
I got bit off by 2 muskie last week in the same day. I can see him come up on that screen, Eric. Oh my God.
That'd be pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. They looked like a snake coming up. And then when we went salmon fishing, that was pretty cool to see. There's a lot of cool stuff to see. Does it make fish easier to catch? Well, you're not wasting time fishing where there are no fish. But
I agree. I don't think it makes it. It's not a cheating tool. You know, you still got to put a little bit of your own intuition into, you know, okay, they didn't bite this jig. What about this jig? Or what about a minnow? Or what about moving it? What about twitching it? What about dragging it past them? What about holding it above their head, holding it under them? I mean, there's still a million things going through your head to think, what are you going to do to try to get that fish to bite? But in a sense, it does make it a little bit easier because you know there's something there that you're working on.
You know what I've started doing? I started hitting them in the nose. That'll get a bite every now and then. I never thought about doing that. And one day I just got upset and I'm like, I'll just drop that sucker right down and see what happens. Boom. And he just reached up, grabbed that thing, and the fish was in the boat.
Yeah, we've done that to some, and then some of them we would, as soon as the jig would barely touch them, boom, they were gone. Completely off the screen, nowhere to be found.
There's a cool part to it and there's not. So I'm trying to control myself to just using it to keep on fish in fishy water rather than barren water. Live scope's no good if I'm fishing weeds. I fish a lot of milfoil over here because they, you know, especially in the summer, they like to tuck up in that milfoil and you really can't see them. You can put the trailers on, which shows movement a lot more. But I haven't gotten that fancy with that.
Yeah.
All right, Wayne, have a good night. I hope you feel better, my friend. There's River Rat 3030. How you doing? But yeah, people like it or they don't. I can understand people getting tired of hearing about it because that's all that. But it's like anything that's the latest and greatest, though.
Yeah.
People like to talk about it. They want to get the market on the attention it brings and so on. But I can definitely understand people being tired of hearing about it. And I hear that from a few people I know in particular that just don't want to hear much about it. So
yeah, I learned a little bit more about watching it and knowing how much somebody said about the reaction of the fish. You know, I kind of enjoyed that. You know, all those fish noticed that jig, or only one out of that school noticed that jig. Why did only that one and all the rest of them turn away from it? something triggered that one fish. And to me, it was like I said, it was just the most fascinating thing I ever watched.
Wayne,
It was
thanks for the
pretty neat.
super. Wayne, thanks for the super chat, buddy. $5 super chat. Wayne's a great supporter. Wayne's a good dude. All right, Wayne, we'll talk to you later. Hopefully you're feeling better, my friend. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. It's an incredible tool, but to be honest with you, side scan is still my bread and butter, like you were saying.
Yeah, I love side scan. When I got I've got the Lowrance Elite TI2. Yeah.
Okay.
And it is so much clearer than anything I've ever used before. That is the main thing I use in my boat now looking for fish. I thought it would really be down scan, but it's not. I'll cruise past the spot. I'll look for them off to I pick them up better off the right-hand side of my boat if my outboard motor's on, just because the outboard motor is making a little bit of disturbance that I can't.
Right. The wash is always more on the left side of the boat, on the port side.
If I get mine tilted up pretty good, I get a good view on the left hand. I get a pretty decent view on the left-hand side, but my right-hand side's always going. Driver's side's always the best. But it seems like it does so well at picking up all those dots and finding them. And, if I can see that shadow, if I know I'm sitting in 30 foot of water and it looks like that shadow is halfway down the water column, I know they're all about 15 foot deep. Mm-hmm. And I'll still got the red, the yellow, and the green buoy markers. I'll undo one and I'll sling it out there where they're at. And then I'll find another spot. And then I'll slowly start working my way back up toward those buoy markers. And then I'm sure there's a generation out there fishing out that's never threw a buoy marker ever in the water.
I got two in my boat. When I'm out there, even with live scope, what I'll do is I'll sweep back and forth, find the start of a brush pile and the end of a brush pile. If I'm throwing a slip cork out there, and mark them from side to side, and I just know where. That's if I got multiple people in my boat, because it's only fun for one person live scope. I ain't gonna lie. Yeah,
it was. Well, he had the guy I was with, one of my pro staff guys, John or Amos Livingston. He had his boat set up pretty good for a tournament rig. So there was two guys. We was both watching it. One controlling the trolling motor, so you had to be thinking about what he's also doing. The guy was not. We had to be able to read each other's minds. So I know I wasn't fishing a spot that I was getting ready to come out of view on. But yeah, you're right. It's probably a little bit better for just one or two people. But the side scan opened up for me what live scopes probably opened up for a lot of other people. I'd never put a lot of stock into my electronics before this boat, other than just having down imaging. That was the best. I thought that was unbelievable. But then when I got the really good side scan and I could side scan areas out, that opened up a lot.
You just cover a lot more water. My two favorite ways to fish for crappie still to this day is under a float is always number one. That's just my favorite way to do it. I like seeing that go down. I like being able to, keep it deadly still over their head, or move it if I want to. It's just the best way. And the second way that I'm kind of getting really fond of is long line. That's real fun.
Long line is fun. Long line, to me, like if you want to go out and just relax and spend a good day on the water, that's I love it. We will take the boat, especially starting this time of year all the way into February. We shut the windshield and we use nothing but the back of the boat. We got the wind blocked off of us. We got the rods out. We got coffee, and we just go past all my marked brush piles, until we get to where we're done, and then go back and do it again.
And I need to give credit to Betty Jean. She's the one that got me. Betty Jean and Brandon Cross, they definitely got me doing that. So they're fully to blame. But this is what we started doing last time is we'll use, and this is what brought it up, is we'd use side scan, find where the crappie are, find piles of them, mark waypoints, go back to the beginning and record a path through all of those crappie that we found, and just record it. Set it, go back to start, boom, just sit back and watch, or eating sandwiches while you
enjoy it. Yeah, that's set your path is so unbelievable. Never did I think a remote control trolling motor was going to change my style of fishing as much as what it did in that boat.
It sure as heck does. I can't keep a trolling motor straight for the life of me, but it can keep itself pretty straight. That's for sure.
Yeah, it can keep itself pretty straight.
Yeah, and that's proven to be pretty good. I've done that a couple times now, and it's pretty cool. I've done actually like full loops around like the ledge of a bowl in a lake that takes literally 2 hours to get through, and that's always kind of fun. So
yeah, and even just using the iPilot, the little north button or whatever it is, that's if I hit a spot and I know I want to fish it right now, I get everything set up and I just hit it, and turn around and we just fish.
So I finally got my wife out in the boat to do a little catfishing for the couples tournament, and now she wants to go crappie fishing. So that's why I've been waiting for this fall bite to really get turned on here, so I can take her out and because I need to put her on fish, Eric.
Yeah.
She says she wants to catch fish. She doesn't want to go fishing.
Yeah, she wants to know the hype of the new boat and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she likes the boat. She don't mind fishing as long as she's catching fish. So
yeah.
Fingers crossed we'll get her out there. Hopefully the bite will come closer to a weekend because she works during the week than it does on a Monday like it would today.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that happens. I'm thinking she might like long line as well, so we'll try doing that. So
yeah, like I said, it's relaxing. There's very little work involved in it besides watching your rod tips. It's a good way to take somebody out that don't know. Somebody that don't really know a whole lot about fishing but want to fish. To be able to see that rod tip bend over. One rod tip that almost hits the water. To me, it's a lot of fun. I know me and Zach, we live for it.
So tell me a little bit about Outlaw Rods, because I've been thinking about getting a couple new rods.
Outlaw Rods, J.R. Odom owns them, and he doesn't live too far away from me. And he got a hold of me one day and asked me about if I'd ever used an Outlaw Rod. And, this guy only lives like 12 miles away from me. Well, I'd heard of them, but I never had one put in my hand. He showed them to me one day in a Dollar General parking lot, and from that day on, I was sold. The feel in the handle is second to none as far as I'm concerned. They're very sensitive. They're not overly sensitive, and they're not overly fast. You got enough hook setting action versus bend. It's just absolutely that's the only rod I got now. And he don't pay me. They're just an awesome rod. It's another guy doing a small business out of his garage. I've been trying to get by.
I didn't realize that. I'm a gear guy myself, so I'm always looking for new stuff. I'm pretty happy. I've heard some people talk bad about like the ACCs, but I got two that I've been using now for coming on 5 years. They've treated me well. I got the longer rods I got are B&Ms just because I buy them at Kmart because they're there. Yeah. Talked myself into it, and I'm glad I did. But I'm looking for something like either an Outlaw rod or a Denali rod. Something.
I've got two 12-foot B&M rods. I had 4 and I'm down to 2, but my dad had bought those when I was like 10 years old. Those are 30-year-old rods. And I got 2 of them that I still use. 30 years ago, so B&M, been around forever, made an excellent rod. So I've got nothing, but I broke B&Ms. I had ACC crappie sticks. They were good rods. I broke ACC crappie sticks too. I broke a Outlaw rod a few weeks ago, because this boat is so much taller than the Champion was, and I had that rod laying up, and I started pushing the boat back in the garage, and I heard something snap, and I was like, what in the world was that? And I broke that thing in 3 pieces, hit the top of the door, shattered the rod, but I'm sure, everything's made with a weak point anymore.
I've broke rods like that too. I broke rods by letting the rod locker door slam on the tip of them. Those break them all the time.
We used to call the door in the back of the Champion the guillotine, because it would cut them in half and you wouldn't even hear it. I mean, it was just like a knife going through warm butter. You'd look back and be like, oh man, not another one. But I've been very impressed with the Outlaw rods, the sensitivity of them. The test he gave me is I was holding that rod in my hand, a 12-foot rod, and he like put the tip right there on his throat, and he just hummed a little bit. And he said, you feel that? And I was like, you didn't just hum. And he's like, hold it again. And then it sold me. I was sold right then and there. But the 10 foots and the 12 foots are absolutely my favorite. I'm supposed to have some 8 foots coming before too long. I haven't tried the 8 foots, but I'm sure they're as good as everything else he has.
Halana's been a member for 10 months. Thank you, Halana. I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. She says, what is a good rod to be a starter crappie rod for someone just getting into crappie fishing?
Like a long rod?
I imagine it would be a shorter rod. I don't think Halana's going to be vertical jigging much. She's probably going to be casting much, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Halana?
I would definitely be looking for one that's got a lot of play in the tip, just because of a crappie's mouth being as thin as what they are. something that's got an ugly stick, for example. You know, you
That'll
can fit
work.
an ugly stick into a pretzel. You know, something that's going to absorb that shock when you set that hook on that crappie.
I think the price points of those Uncle Bucks from B&M
Yeah.
are you can't beat them. They're
For
decent
a long
rods.
time, our Walmart over here had them for $50. You know, 10-foot Uncle Buck.
I got a 12-foot graphite Uncle Buck. What is it? A Sam
Super Sensitive or
Sam Super Sensitive. I think it's a 12-footer. I got it for $15 at Walmart.
that was a good buy.
That was going out of season. It was end of season sale. So
yeah, but yeah, that's where I got all my B&M rod. Most all my 10-foot B&M rods all came from Walmart. Yeah, and I think when Dad bought those 12-footers, I really think he ordered those out of the catalog straight from back when they were made in Mississippi. I'm pretty sure they were still making them in Mississippi when he bought those.
Yeah, hold on. That's like the good thing about crappie and pan fishing. You don't need high dollar gear for it to work.
You can be, you know what, a rod combo for like $20, a pack of hooks for $2, some bobbers, and split shots, and a bucket of minnows. You're ready to go.
You
can make it super cheap, or live scope and brand new boats and 10, 12-foot rods, self-propelled trolling motors, and
you can buy 2,000 sickle hooks and have them waiting in your garage for you for when you need them. Stuff like that. You can get pretty carried away. It's pretty close to bass fishing. It can be very crappie fishing and pan fishing is probably the least gear heavy type of fishing, or the most gear heavy type of fishing. I think it probably only takes second place to bass fishing.
Yeah, I think crappie fishing there for the last couple of years was where bass fishing was 25, 30 years ago, maybe. You know, it was all just coming on the scene, and there's all these new products, all these new lines, all these new rods geared for crappie. And before it really wasn't like that. You had a few major, you know, B&M was one that manufactured rods that were geared toward, but I don't think they geared them toward crappie. I think it was, you know, a panfish kind of rod. I don't think it was, you know, just crappie fishing.
Yep.
Yeah, and pan fishing was definitely the gateway drug. There's no doubt.
Yeah, Krill says pan fishing is the gateway drug. That's no joke. It's always fun. It's fun to get out. I don't care what anybody says. I still think a big bluegill fights harder than any bass.
Pound for pound, a bluegill would out win a fight over anything.
And another reason why I really like pan fishing and crappie fishing is because the resource is so easily replenished by itself. Yep. You know, it doesn't take too much. I mean, you'll have years that are better and years that are worse, but they'll for the most part come back. Now that was something I heard a debate about. A lot of big fish are getting picked off with this live scope and stuff, and that I can understand. But like anything, I think Mother Nature will find a way to equalize that. And
I think they do too. But I think a lot of those big fish too were probably dying of old age. You know, some of those fish, I mean, you see a lot more now, you know, being caught. I mean, the same way with bass and all that, but you see a lot of crappie now that before, whoever would have thought you was going to catch a 2.5-pound crappie clear out in the middle of the lake and nowhere above nothing, just roaming. Nobody else was ever going to catch that fish, you know, by accident.
You know, every now and then you'll hear somebody catch a 4-pound crappie.
Yeah.
Now, a 4-pound crappie is like it's an anomaly.
Oh yeah.
Usually, like the max, as far as I'm concerned, in my own personal opinion, I think 3 pounds is max under optimal growing conditions.
Yeah, under
that's
very optimal growing conditions.
Weather, predators, stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you're getting a fish up around there, you're definitely at the end of its life cycle for the most part. Being there, it's around 8 years. They're guessing is what I've read in the past.
Yeah. And you know, you take lakes like Grenada Lake in Mississippi that have those big monster crappie. Look how they manage those lakes for those big monster crappie. You know, 12 inches is a keeping size crappie. Nothing under 12.
Nothing under 12.
If that was the case here in the state of Missouri, we'd probably go back to bluegill fishing because you're not going to catch a ton of over 12-inch, you know, crappie to take home. I mean, you
at least not right away. You would eventually.
Yeah, exactly. You would eventually, but if they had that length limit on them here in the state of Missouri, maybe we'd be pulling 3-pounders out of all these lakes around here too. It's kind of got a lot to do with lake management, you know, just as much as it does with predators, weather, and you know all that too. I caught some pretty big ones when we lived up in Iowa, Lake Rathman up there. We caught some pretty big crappie out of that lake too, and that was up north, kind of in a whole different weather area, than where I'm at now.
Yeah, crappie fish in Mississippi's on my bucket list. I want to get on that Grenada once because I was hearing them talking about, they'll catch pound and a halfers all day.
Yeah. Grenada wouldn't be
makes
bad,
me laugh and cry at the same time, Eric. No joke.
It's just one of those. Seeing pictures of it and being on Truman, they remind me so much of each other. Just that sometimes that dirty water, those trees sticking up, and Truman has put so many scratches on my brand new boat that I'm ready for all clean lakes. I don't want to see no more stumps. And I posted that video that wanted, that every time I go to the lake. That's the truth. That is the truth. Truman, and with GPS and all that, I don't hit them when I run down the lake wide open. It's usually when I get into the trees, the actual fish, and then the wind and the waves, and just, oh my gosh.
If you do, or when you do get live scope and you're looking down at that screen half the day, wait till you see the kind of crap you float into doing that. It's not good because you ain't looking up.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm guilty for that even with side view. I was on the lake today looking at my side scan going down the lake. I'd look up. I'm like, all right, which direction is the boat ramp? No, I had to look down at the map to remember where I was going. So then again, I got lost in the woods mushroom hunting once. I had no cell signal. That's another story. So all right, so let me ask you a couple of questions here about crappie fishing so we can give these people some good tips. What's your opinion on colors?
Use what you got confidence in. I have said that for years. If you think red and chartreuse is the best color, red and chartreuse is your best color. You stick with that. If you think black and chartreuse is, stick with that one. Go with what you feel you're going to catch fish on. You get a lot of opinions on certain lakes. People will call me and say, hey, I live down here on Grenada. I already know I'm going to be tying black and orange, gold and red. Those are the colors I'm going to tie. Pick something that you got faith in. If you got one in that box that's just your absolute favorite color, use that one first. And then start basing what you're going to do next based off what that color was doing. Were they short striking it? Go to an all red one. Or go to an all chartreuse one. If you had a black and chartreuse jig on, they're short striking it, try an all chartreuse one. Try a solid black one. Go with that. But let your favorite color dictate what you're going to do later on through that day.
What if they're short striking monkey milk like they were doing today?
Monkey milk. Go with the solid white one.
That's exactly what I did. So it worked out pretty well. But yeah.
Monkey. Man, I've heard that name, monkey milk, so many times over
the last monkey milk's killed more.
Just to hear the word monkey milk.
I think monkey milk's killed.
Up and rolling. That's the first color I did was monkey milk.
Yeah, monkey milk's killed more crappie on our lakes than any other color there's out there.
Monkey milk is if anything's hurting the crappie population, it's monkey milk. It ain't got nothing to do with Garmin.
And it's funny because I'll go from like a monkey milk to like a one that's got a little bit more flash mixed into the plastic, and then the bite will turn off. Like today, I went from monkey milk to like a bleeding shad, no bite whatsoever. It was like I made the littlest change, and it would totally turn off. And I'll do that once I'm on some fish. I won't hesitate to try like some different colors or some different silhouettes.
If we're hammering them, I'll start going with anything. And then I'll also start, if they're biting really good, I'll start increasing the size of my jig just so that way I can get it to them faster. If they're tearing up at 16, just boom, 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 I'll move up to an eighth. I might even move up to a quarter. If I know it's not going to affect the bite, they're still hitting it, and I want that jig back in that brush pile as fast as possible, I'm going to start stepping up my jigs just to get it, and that came from me and him fishing tournaments. If they're biting and biting and biting, let's get it down there on them faster. Let's switch to a 1/4 ounce jig head and start catching them.
And also them bigger ones there at the bottom of the pile, I'm starting to learn the hard way too.
I'm starting to see that a lot of fish are hanging out on the bottom, period.
Yeah.
On side scan last week, we went to a spot that I know gets hit really hard. And it probably ain't just live scope. It's probably just a ping from sonars anyway. But I noticed the last couple of times I've been on this lake that there's a lot of fish that hang out now toward the mouth of the cove and hang out at the very base of some of those trees. And I caught just a glimpse of them last week when I side scanned past them. I was like, man, that's odd. This time of year, this early in the morning, they are sitting flat on the bottom like that. No front coming in, nothing odd. Water was still pretty calm, but it just seemed like the fish were really low in that water column that day.
I'm catching them every now and then with mud on their bellies, Eric.
Yeah, I've seen them like that. And I'm kind of curious as the weather starts getting colder. Is that going to prove me wrong? And they're all going to start coming back up in that water column when they're out in the channel, doing their winter thing, because that's when we would really find crappie stacked up as, it's 29 degrees, it's 30 degrees, it's December. They're hanging out right on this brush pile that's right smack dead in the middle of the channel. I'm curious of what's going to happen this year. If they're still going to be from 10 foot all the way down to 30 foot, or are they all going to be sitting right at that 30 foot, right at that channel break? That's kind of got me curious.
I know you don't do any ice fishing or much ice fishing, if you do any at all, but basins are money, and they'll roam basins when the water gets to be that cold. Here, I'm waiting for that time of the year where the water isn't frozen, but the water temps drop that much, and they'll do the same thing here. They'll go inside the deeper side of canals. They're just looking for shelter out of the wind for the most part, I think, or they're just following the bait into them because the baits are going in there. I think shad might even be spawning this time of year. Don't quote me on that because I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
And I think it's got a lot to do too with the water stable there. They're not having the fluctuation of hot, warm and cool weather from being inside that cove. I think they get in those spots at those channels, whether they're in the bottom of it or they're up in that water column. If they're up in that water column and there's an abrupt weather change, all they got to do is sink. They don't have to swim off, go somewhere else. They just drop right there in that spot. And I think they feel safe in that deeper spot of that lake, being with most of it's going to be the channel.
And, I'm also one that believes that, I know that lakes, they turn twice a year in the spring and in the fall. And right now their lakes are starting to turn. Weeds are dying off. So there's a lot of nitrogen in the water, and there's absence of nitrogen in the water, and that has a lot to do with it. Following them around through that stuff, you use your head a little more, and you'll do pretty good. Now, real quick, I don't mean to harp on live scope, but I went up to a lake in Wisconsin called Lake Monona, which is right next to Lake Mendota. It's the Madison chain, and there's a spot over there where a lot of guys crappie fish. And I had my live scope out there. I scanned for like 2 hours, didn't see nothing. And I just said, I'm going to turn this garbage off and see if I can do it the old way. And I kind of looked at the water, looked which way the wind was blowing, followed the wind in the direction. I opened up one of my apps, found out that the wind was blowing like that for 3 days. They blew into this one quarter. I had a limit at 25, nothing smaller than 11 inches in 2 hours, Eric.
As much of a pain in the butt as it is to fish on windy days, sometimes it can be the best.
It's worth it, definitely. Fish the weather the day before, but that was my experience. So touching base on that whole live scope and electronics thing. Slowly bring it into your fishing if you want to, but don't let it become a crutch, because I find myself guilty of doing that too.
I'm afraid a lot of times that I'm going to end up losing the way I like to fish. I really enjoy doing this, and maybe there'll be a time where, okay, let's get the live scope on the boat. Let's change things up a little bit. But the windy days, I don't like the windy days sometimes because I got to do that much more work in a boat. But if you don't mind doing that much more work in a boat, don't pass up a good windy day. Get 10, 15 mile an hour wind facing a point, blowing across the point, hit those spots. They're going to be there. If the crappie usually the white bass are, largemouth are, they all know those shad don't have the strength to fight that wind and that current, and they all get blown into those spots eventually. Sometime through the day, they're going to end up there.
And that's just some great tips. We're just over an hour here, Eric. I could talk to you probably for 3 more. I'm going to have you back on the show, bud, here pretty soon. It's always a pleasure talking to you, both online and offline. You're a good dude. You want to plug anything before we end it?
I don't really have a whole lot to plug. Take care of your local guys. You got, somebody close to you, somebody I will guarantee everybody on here has probably got somebody they know within a 10, 15 mile radius that's making jigs, making jig hits. Help those guys out a little bit. It goes a long way to somebody that's just starting out in this business. And like I said, you can get a lot of things from these guys that you're not going to get in your big box stores. You can get a lot of custom jigs. Just kind of help those guys out some.
Yep, and they can find you. Eric Massey Jig Company on TikTok. I got the link to your YouTube and on Facebook. Correct?
Facebook. A lot of it I'm doing just for pure the fun of it. I don't really advertise a whole lot. I do still take orders, but I like time jigs. It gives me something to do, keeps my hands busy.
Eric's jigs look like race cars. I don't know how else to put it. They look pretty darn good.
But yeah, I take pride in what I do, and most people I would like to think probably take the same amount of pride in what they do too.
Fantastic. Eric, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thanks for all the thumbs up. You guys are great. God bless everybody. Have a good night. Get out there and fish and stay safe, man, with this weather changing. All right, folks. Have a good night. All right, Eric, hold on.